In our restaurants, we serve over 1,000 roasts every Sunday, so we think we've picked up a trick or two about how to make the ultimate roast dinner. We're going to show you tips and tricks we've picked up along the way, so you can make a meal your family will be talking about for years. First up, the most misunderstood side of them all, Brussels sprouts.
This is my favourite way to cook sprouts. Take our sprouts, first of all we're going to take off the bottom, and we're going to remove a few of the leaves, like kind of naturally coming off anyway. The rest of the sprouts I'm going to cut in half, like so, and place them cut side down into a pan. The only reason I'm taking off these outer leaves is because they'll just come off and they'll burn in the pan. And what I'm going to do with all these nice little leaves here is I'm just going to mix them through at the end so they still remain, they still have a bit of bite to them. They're not like just absolutely knackered. We're going to cook these really nice and slowly. Bit of salt, a bit more oil. But green vegetables always taste so much better when they've been charred and not boiled. When they're boiled, they lose a lot of their flavour. Just cooking it really low and slow, and then they have this beautiful, a little bit of texture. They're soft and sweet on the inside, and it's a really nice, different way to cook your sprout. Okay, so the sprouts are cooking now. I'm just going to pop a lid on them, just to help accentuate that steam a little bit. So I've taken my lid off my sprouts. They've been cooking for about 8 to 10 minutes. Tasting good, looking good. Now I'm going to turn up the heat slightly, and I'm going to add a knob of butter. A bit more salt and a few good twists of pepper. The last step is to add in my leaves and my sprouts, just to go in the top now, just to lightly finish. Got the butter in there, it's roasting nicely. And I'm going to finish this with a little bit of chopped parsley as well. So now, oh, now look at those. Now just give them a little toss, lid on for a minute just to steam open those leaves, and just roughly chop. So the sprouts have been cooking for about 8 to 9 minutes now. The leaves have gone in for about a minute, coming to an end. Going to turn the heat down low, and then we're going to add in, boom, sallow sriracha. Available online, made in Bedfordshire using British chilies. We're going to add a few little knobs of sriracha, depending on how hot you like it. A few knobs of sriracha, generous parsley, like so. And I've got a few spoons of butter emulsion, as seen in one of our other videos. Yes. You could easily just do this by adding a little bit of butter and water, is okay. Just helps to moisten the whole lot. Just going to mix it all together. Sriracha sprouts. So a really fun, slightly different way to do your sprouts this year. As you can see the caramelization now on the insides of the sprout. Sprouts get a really bad rep of being like sort of stewed cabbage flavour, but they're doing them this way. They have a little bit of crispiness to it. An alternative way to serve your sprouts this Christmas, but I guarantee you're going to love it.
So I thought I'd do a definitive post on the perfect roast potatoes. So if it's me, what I always do is I'll peel them the night before, and then I'll leave them sitting in water. Basically, this just starts to remove the first layer of starch. And the potato is super important. So this particular potato is an Agria potato. So that's a new breed of potato. And basically, nice and fluffy, and it's perfect for roasting because it's got quite a low starch content. So you want something that's got a low starch content for roasting because it allows them to get crispier a lot quicker. I'm keeping them quite chunky. You can assume that you're going to lose about 10 to 20% of the potato when you fluff it up. Keeping them quite large, leaving them in cold water overnight is better as well, because then you can get ready on Christmas Day and you're not actually like doing loads of messy work. It's just reheating and cooking really, and drinking champagne and arguing with your family. What we're going to do now is we're going to put them into salted water, 3 per person if they're really nice and big. These are a little bit smaller, these spuds, so I would go 4 per person because you're going to lose a few in the process, and then you've got a good amount for leftovers. So season your water so it's like basically this salinity of seawater, so nice and seasoned. Drop in your spuds, slowly move them around. So we're going to start the process of ruffling the edges in the pan. What you want to do ideally is just stir every 5 minutes. They're going to cook for about 35 minutes until they're super soft. And we're going to take them off, let them steam, give them a good ruffle, let them steam a bit more, and then cook them in a load of fat. An amount of fat that makes your grandparents gasp. So that you can see they're just bubbling away, but really gently. They'll be going for about 20 minutes. Just stirring them just starts to ruffle these edges lightly, and you can already see that's going to be a beautiful roast. So keep them stirring every 5 minutes. They've got another 15 minutes to go. Whilst we're doing that, we can get our tray ready with the oil. A nice deep tray. The ratio I'm going to use here is 50-50 duck or goose fat. I only really do this at Christmas because I think that the duck fat is just that extra step of indulgence. Normally speaking, I would actually just use cooking oil because it's got a higher burning point. In a separate pan, I'm just going to get some fat for basting. as soon as those cool potatoes hit that fat, they're going to start the crisping process straight away. And then this is going to be heated up to almost to smoke point. And then we're going to pour the boiling oil all over the potatoes so we don't have to move them around and ruffle them in the tray before they've been in the oven and set as a roast potato. And I'm almost, you know, I'm stirring them, but equally going against the grain as well, so they sort of have to bash together a little bit and just start forming those little ridges all over the spuds. I already see them starting there. That's what's going to get super crispy when the fat gets in between there. Everybody! So this is the final result. So you can see what you've got is this ultra craggy potato. And the best potato, like the best roasties, is almost when you go just a little bit too far. So these are completely cooked all the way through now. And what we're going to do is pass this off, and we want to be super gentle with them at this stage because they're going to be really, really delicate. We're going to just let those steam out now. We'll whack them back into the pan. And then this water, really, really good for your gravy. So it's going to add starch, which just basically starts the process of thickening your gravy. So you save that and use it for any way of cooking your other vegetables or your gravy. It's just get better and better. So we're just going to let these steam out for a couple of minutes. And at this point, what we do is season them now. So that means that they've had that initial salt on them, but also the salt will just help to draw out any moisture from the potato. So add another little bit of seasoning now, and you shouldn't need to season them much after that. Okay, so these guys have been steaming now for about 5 or 6 minutes. I'm just gonna whack this bowl on the top, and then I'm just gonna do a really light fluff. Check them to make sure they're not getting too beaten up. And you can see already, look, that's exactly what we want. So like I say, you will lose a couple of potatoes in the process, but it's worth it. Absolutely banging roasties. And that's what you're looking for all over, that crisp and crag. So we'll just go a little bit more. Okay, so there we have it. Really, really super, super fluffy. And now, again, let them steam out. Let's start heating up our fat. Fat is super, super hot. You can hear it like crackling away, perfect. And then as these cool, you can see this layer of, almost goes really pale and white. And that's as the moisture has left the potato and it's dried out. So I'm just gonna place some, these are like the best bits. This is what people fight over. So our oil is now smoking, so really, really hot. So I'm gonna turn it off. Just let it chill out for a bit. And this oil in here is really hot as well. So being super, super careful. Maybe use some oven gloves. This is like the worst. When I'm doing roast potatoes is the worst burn I've ever had in the kitchen. So I was wearing like really inappropriate shoes in the kitchen and it dripped onto my foot, and then I knew it was gonna hurt as soon as it did it, but yeah, it took like a couple of minutes, like a couple of seconds to go through the foot, and then it was just like excruciating pain. Right, there we go. So these are going on. Traditionally what you do now is turn them over lightly in the oil, but they're so delicate that they're gonna be damaged. So look, you can hear it, you can see it hitting them with that oil. It's already started that process, and it almost like sets the crag, and it does a lot of the work for you. So now you can basically leave these. You don't have to keep turning them over or checking them. They'll cook really happily at about 180 degrees for 40 minutes, and then we're going to add our aromats in at the end. But you can see the spacing on them. The level of oil is is enough to give a cardiologist a fucking migraine, but it is it's essential to get the super crispy spuds. All right, so our spuds are insanely crispy and nice and golden. I'd say they're probably about 95% of the way cooked. Really important last step is just loads of fresh herb herbs, garlic. The reason we don't put that at the beginning is because it'll burn and it'll get quite acrid and bitter in the flavour. So really what we want to do is just almost as finishing. And you see we've not actually turned them over at all, so it's super low maintenance. Insanely crispy, absolutely beautiful and golden for another 10 minutes. So I'll just get a tray and then just lay a really nice paper down. Right, so it's been 10 minutes. I've just got that last little bit of golden colour. Garlic hasn't burned, which is really important, onto a tray. What I do is I actually keep the oil. So you can, it's basically just potato infused with herb oil, so you can actually use that next time you make potatoes. It just sits in the front really nicely. They're the best bits. From the thing out like this is what people fight over. Super crispy, super craggy. Yeah, they could do it with a touch of salt. Fine salt rather than Maldon. It'll stick and get in between all of those crags. So use a bit of fine salt, and that's it. So this is what we want. This is our perfect spud. So we've got really nice bits of potato in there, but it's also, you know, broken down enough so you get this like ridiculous layer of crisp and crack. So these fissures and these little bits of these inconsistencies is what gives you the perfect roasty. Perfectly crispy on the outside, super fluffy in the middle. Look at the state of that.
Okay, so now we are making our stuffing. So I'm going to take a white onion. We're going to go with a touch of oil into our pan. I'm going to take some beautiful smoked streaky bacon. I'm just going to cut it into nice lardons, nice and fine. I'm going to get that sauteing off. Half an onion, going to roughly dice it. And into our bacon, we're going to add our diced onion on top. We're just building up a bit of flavour to go in the base of our stuffing. Okay, so into my bowl, I'm going to add I'm just going to add in our flavouring. So I'm going to go in with some apricots. I'm just going to lightly slice those up. So we're actually going to cook this stuffing in this pan. 100 grams of apricots. Lovely, so that's sweating down nicely, smells beautiful. Got my apricots going in. Next up, I'm going to chop some sage, and we're going to add that to our onion mixture now. Sage and onion. Classic combo. Just going to do a nice fine chiffonade. I'm not going to worry about really finely slicing it, because I think a nice chunky stuffing is quite nice. So that's going to go into our onion mix, like that. Going to add some rosemary, which I'm going to go a little bit finer on. Too much rosemary, and it can all end up being a little bit almost medicinal. So rosemary in. I'm going to add a generous tablespoon of mustard. I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of breadcrumb, and I got some garlic powder, as well as a generous pinch of salt and lots of black pepper. Chestnuts. The chestnuts I'm just going to break. So these are backpack cooked chestnuts that you buy from the supermarket. I'm just going to very lightly crush them with my hand. Doesn't need to be fine, because again, when you mix it with the pork mix, it's all going to break up anyway. So they're pre-cooked, they're readily available everywhere. Adds a nice nuttiness to the dish. Keep them nice and big, because once I add the pork mince here, and then I mix it again, they're all going to break up even more. So I'm going to go nice and heavy on the chestnut. My bacon mix is nice and crispy. The sage is all roasted. I'm going to now put that into the same pan. Give it a little mix, and then we're going to add our pork mince in. So we're going for probably about 500 grams of pork mince here. Try to gently fold it through the sausage meat. Sorry, fold it through all my flavourings into there. I'm using my hand here, just so I can sort of spread the mix between my fingers. That looks delicious. I'm going to take my stuffing mix, and I'm just going to pop it into the pan, like so. I'm just going to bake it in here, and then they can scoop it out of the table. So just press it down nicely. It doesn't need to be too flat. A bit more pepper on the top. I'm just going to go a little bit of oil just to help caramelise the top. And then I'll pop this into a hot oven. Set at 190. So our stuffing has been cooking now for about 40 minutes. I'm going to pull it out of the oven. Lovely. Oh, nice. So we've got some nice crispy bits around the outside. Let's just brush the top with a bit of butter. Let that melt all over the top. Because if Christmas wasn't gluttonous enough. I'm going to roughly chop some parsley as well. So I'm just going to take it out of the pan, pop it onto our plate. You can get the mix done the day before. You can change the flavours. You could make it vegetarian. By, instead of putting the pork in, you can add in some grated vegetables.
Turkey gets a bad rep. It's actually a really tricky thing to cook perfectly. The problem with it is, it's not like a traditional chicken. You've got this really sort of, it's quite sometimes quite a little bit tougher dark meat on the legs, and these huge breasts, and it's not like a natural thing. We've bred it to be like that. The best way to cook a turkey is to butcher it properly and cook it separately. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the legs off. So I've just gone down, I've left a little bit, taken a bit of the skin from the leg to make sure that the skin fully covers the breast. And that's super important, because that's going to be a really nice natural protection against the heat of the oven. So I don't know about you, but my dad used to cook the turkey. He used to put it in the oven the night before, and then wake up at like 5 in the morning and baste it, and thought that was the best way. It was the driest, most awful overcooked bird, and it kind of made me, when I was younger, a little bit like, I want to say, it's going to sound a bit dramatic, but a little bit phobic of turkey meat. And then it was only when we went to my wife's house for dinner that I had it cooked properly, and I really started to enjoy it. And the thing is with it, when you cook a whole turkey, it's never going to work. So you're never ever going to get those cooked at the same time as this. And taking this apart like this just gives you so much more freedom. And also, you get the added benefit of a really good gravy. So I've just taken the legs off, I've taken the back off, and I'm just going to cut down the backbone as well. And I'm going to take the wishbone out, which is a nice little touch. I know obviously people like to do the wishbone after they've carved it, but it makes it so much more easy to carve. It's definitely worth it. So take that out as well, and then just go in, take the wishbone. You've already taken a little bit of it away, but remove the rest. Should just pull out nice and easy, nice and clean like that. And then inside the turkey as well, I always take this out. So it's just, I think they call it a feed sack, and it's the same with most poultry. So it's just not very nice to eat. I just take this little bit of a feed sack out of the top because it's quite tough. Sometimes it contains whatever the bird was eating whilst it was slaughtered as well. Take that out. So there you've got perfectly clean area for carving. Just makes it super easy. We've got our 2 legs. Now the wings, I just take off here because they as well overcook, and they're best for, they make a really, really good gravy. Now the reason I'm not going to take basically the drums off is because it removes too much of the skin, and then you'll have the skin coverage affected by it. So that's my finished bird. So you can see it's the whole back removed. Basically it makes sure that the heat transfers from the underneath as well. And this, unconventionally, this bird will take about 40 minutes to cook, absolute max. And then the real art to get a really juicy turkey is in the resting. Trimming off from a little bit of that excess. And then this is the most important tip, brine. So this is a 10% herb brine. And you hear people about, you know, they're brining their turkey overnight. This is 10% salt. You don't want it, you know, to cure the meat or, you know, or over season it. So the best thing to do is just to keep it in there for about 5 or 6 hours. So not the whole day, and then dry it off before you cook it. So you get a really nice skin. So what I'm going to do with the legs is I'm just going to really simply just take out the bones, and we're going to brine these 2 in the same brine for the same amount of time. And then you can stuff these as well. So you can make a little ballotine and stuff it with you know, like a nice pork stuffing or something to give it extra moisture, or you can just literally just wrap it up in bacon and roast it in a nice ballotine, and it's so much more satisfying. Like, there'll be absolutely no leftovers because the leg meat 100% is tastier than the white. I remember cooking Christmas dinner when I was like 12 years old, and then I literally I used to go around and ask for tips from all my relatives. So I was hustling from a young age. And I do always do actually do the Christmas dinner. I think it's one of those things, you know, most chefs say they don't actually cook at home. So what I've done there is I've just taken the thigh bone out, I've taken the leg bone out. Get your butcher to do this if you can. But this is when you go to your butcher and you've asked them to give you a turkey crown with legs and thighs removed and deboned. That's all you need to do. And then the brining and stuff like that you can do at home, but it's super, super simple, super easy. I was obsessed with Christmas dinner from a young age. Like, I used to plan my Christmas dinner like months and months in advance, and I remember my dad like snapping at me because he was like basically complaining that all I'd done for months before Christmas was just talk about different condiments and sides on the Christmas dinner. So yeah, it was a bit of an obsession when I was younger. And this technique, actually, I think I read in a Gordon Ramsay book and tried it, and just like once I'd done it, I was just like, well, that's definitely the best way to do it. Made a lot of sense. So something that's more important with turkey, the sinews in the legs are quite strong, so those bones go into the stock, and you need to remove them. So in a chicken leg, you almost don't even taste them, but in a turkey leg you do. I think sometimes that's the reputation of it being stringy, but you can just see that they're just these very well developed tendons, and they just need to be taken out. Again, you can get your butcher to do all this, or if you've got a bit of time on Christmas and you want to escape the kids and drink champagne in the kitchen, make the excuse that you've got to devein your turkey legs. But what you're essentially doing is you're making your life on Christmas Day by doing this, like, you know, the day before, a couple of days before, just super simple. And these literally just get banged in the oven, and it's go time. Slice them up. No messing around picking the meat off the bones. It's all done before, meaning that on Christmas you don't actually have to worry about anything other than put stuff in your face. So that's the main tendons removed. You can just run your knife through this bit now. I always take this off now. So there we have our first one. So you got thigh, leg, no sinews in there. Don't know why we only eat it one time of the year. It's quite strange, really. So what I've done here is I've taken off these, the back bits, the wings, and that is the basis for a really amazing chicken gravy. So you can just roast these bones in the oven, make a nice turkey stock. You're not going to use that. People usually leave it on. I don't know about you, but no one's going to be gnawing on a turkey wing on Christmas. You know, when you've got loads of lovely breasts. So make a delicious gravy out of all that and utilize it as best you can. And these I'm just going to whack into the fridge. They're going to brine for about 6 hours, and I'll take them out, I'll rinse them for 20 minutes and dry them off thoroughly. Big dog, right? Christmas, mate. Christmas is coming. Right, so this has been brining now for 6 hours. So just remove any of the herbs from the brine. The herb brine is super simple to make. It's just basically 10% whatever liquid you want to do. It's 10% of salt to water. Remove the thyme, and it's slightly firmed up the meat. You can see that it's brined. Definitely does change the texture of the meat. And now it's seasoned all the way through. So I'm just going to let that dry off. Ideally you let that dry off overnight, but equally if you've not got time, you're in a rush, a really good dry with some paper towels and get that skin super dry. So all I'm going to do with the legs is grab some tin foil and then just lay down bacon. I love streaky bacon. I know in England we're meant to stick with the back, but streaky is the one. The Americans got something right. Like and subscribe. So what I do now, just lightly hammer it a little bit. If you get like pancetta, you can probably skip this step. And I'm actually going to leave the skin on because I personally like it. You can remove the skin if you want to. And if you want to, you can stuff this with pork stuffing, whatever you want. But just for ease, I just prefer just to roll it like this, keeping it nice and tight. Boom, you got a Christmas cracker. There you go. So that's a really simple preparation for the leg. What I tend to do is I just release the skin. So people put butter underneath the skin, they put oil, they massage the breast, they put bay leaves, they put thyme down there. Personally, I don't like carving it when it's got lots of herbs underneath the skin, and I think they can be quite tough. And also, the herbs are in the brine, so that you've got that herb flavour through already. And what I'm doing now is almost like you use a bike pump or a pneumatic pump to get rid of the skin on a crispy duck. So just detaching it away from the breast, it just allows it to get crispy. And that's what we want. We want a really nice succulent breast, but with a beautiful golden crisp to the skin. As it cooks, steam comes out of the meat, and then it creates a little layer, and then the heat from the oven just basically gets it a little bit more crispy. So yeah, I've just detached the skin, and then I just liberally season it with salt. I think people cook it with tin foil on. What I found is you don't need to do that. I think the best way to do it is just to get the ultimate crispy skin, it's just to cook it quite quickly. So I don't cook it, some people say they put it into a hot oven and they reduce it. I don't, I whack it into a 180 degree oven and cook it fairly conventionally, and then just give it a really long time to rest. And that is it. So these are gonna go in the oven together. If you want to, you can put some vegetables underneath for your stock. 180 degrees for around about 35 minutes, and then we'll remove the foil and glaze it all up nicely. So I've just pulled this out, and I can tell it's definitely cooked. That was 43 minutes, and I've just taken the tin foil off. So what now I do is, sometimes I just pierce it here just to make sure. And if the juices are running out, yeah, nice and clear, that's perfect. You want to still serve it warm, so I'm just gonna let that cool for about 8 to 10 minutes. And that just allows the heat to go through. And then with these little legs that have been thoroughly cooked now, I just add the juice from the tray into a little bit of marmalade, and then I always use English mustard, but you can use Dijon if you want, and then just mix that up nicely. And we're just going to spoon that over. And that'll caramelize and get nice and sticky on top of the bacon. So whack that back in the oven whilst your turkey cools. So these have been in the oven for about 10 minutes with the marmalade glaze on, and it caramelizes nice and quickly. You can see I've just put all the glaze from the tray on there as well. And I'm just finishing carving this turkey, so go down nice and clean. So basically, most people, they'll carve the turkey like this, that you see traditionally, but it's definitely not the best way. And this is the best way, 100%. So you just take it off there, and then But we can see we've got really nice crispy skin, and the flesh is super moist, cooked all the way through. And then pretty simply, personally I quite like fairly chunky size. So super juicy, really moist. So that's rested for about 25-35 minutes. You can rest it for longer if you want to get ahead. But then with the carbon, just exactly the same on the other side. So run your knife down. That is the benefit of doing the wishbone. It really does make a massive difference when you're carving. So just finding the bone and letting the knife do the work. Right there. And then you can turn it over and you can just gently come underneath the breast. Take it off. So that will be your turkey gravy or stock for the next day. Make a little turkey soup with it. Slice, so crispy that skin, nice thick slices, and just see how juicy it is. And that's the process of brining it as well, helps with that. And this one, super simple, just slice it. Boom! I guarantee the brown meat, it'll go quicker than the white meat if you follow that method. And then look how still really nice and moist. Perfectly seasoned the whole way through, so you don't need to add salt. Really beautiful crispy skin. That is the ultimate way to prep and cook a turkey.
Right, so we've got chicken wings here. If you're doing a turkey crown, some, then you might have the legs you can put into the gravy. Or the best, if you've got the time, you can just go to your butcher and just get a few bones. So we've got chicken bones here. Obviously, the smaller you cut the bones, the more flavour you're going to get out of them. So what we're going to do here is just lightly cut up the bone to really make sure we can get maximum colour. So I'm just going to pop these into my roasting tray, starting it on the hob just to get it going. So just with the heel of a heavy bottomed knife, using the weight of the knife, like so. Which will give me probably about a litre of gravy or so. On a medium heat at the moment, just going to get it started. Got an onion. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is going to get the bones into the oven now. It'll take about 45 minutes to an hour, give or take, on a high heat. So chicken wings, I usually do about 190. So just going to roughly slice my onion. So what in theory we're going to do is going to roast off the chicken wings, really nice and dark and golden, maximum flavour. And then we'll remove the bones from the pot and go in with the veg into the pot. So sometimes you'll get like a really meaty sauce. Sometimes you'll get one that's a little bit over sweet. Sweetness can come from a few different things, but caramelising of your vegetables is going to add sweetness to your sauce. So we're going to mix the carrots and the onions together. The garlic bulb. The garlic you can leave the skin on, that's not an issue. And then we've got some lovely hard herbs. Now I'll put the herbs into the sauce. So I've got some rosemary and some thyme. I personally love rosemary and thyme, so I'll go in with a good amount. We're going to add that into our sauce once the bones are about half roasted. So what we're making here is an easy way to do it the day before. Beautiful. So here's my bones. As you can see, they're really nicely roasted. So now I'm going to put in my my herbs and my garlic. So I've just cut the garlic bulb in half, and now I'm just going to break it just roughly like that. The amounts here are really flexible to your personal taste. I love the flavour of the hard herbs, so I'm going heavy on that, and I love garlic as well, so that's going in. And then I'm just going to give that a little turn, and then just pop it back in the oven for like another 55 minutes in total. Oh, nice. Here I've just got a large bowl, and I'm just going to remove my chicken from the pan. Like so. Put this onto my hob on a medium heat. So as you can see, there's all my flavourings in there. It looks absolutely delicious. Just want to pick them up and eat them now. Flame up! Gonna go in with a touch more oil into my tray. The oil really just helps you get that deep colour on all your vegetables. And it conducts the heat and makes it roast off evenly. So into that pan, I'm gonna add my carrots and my onions. And also my parsnip trimmings from the parsnips that we cut for roasting to make our crispy parsnips. Yeah. And this, as I said, is going to add a really nice sweetness and depth to our sauce. Also, what it's going to do is help to lift off all of the caramelised juices from the bottom of the pan. So turn it down low, let it steam, and then once I've scraped off the bottom, then I'll turn it back up to caramelise the veg. The bottom of my pan now is nice and clear. And all that roasted chicken fat and crispy bits is all being lifted up from the bottom of the pan. So this is a very similar process to how we make our stocks in the restaurant. So now I'm going to turn the heat back up for the gravy and roast the vegetables down nicely. we're going to go in with our alcohol. So veg is sweated down nicely, onions are lovely and soft. I'm going to turn the pan down. I've got in here, I've got some port, and also we're going to go in with a little bit of white wine, probably about 200 mils of each. That's going to deglaze the bottom of our pan. And again, with the gravy, you really can just get creative with it. Like if you have red wine knocking around, go for it. You got a bit of brandy knocking around in the cupboard, go for it. Obviously, the more alcohol you put in, the better quality. It's going to make your sauce better and better and better. But equally, you can just get away with a little bit of glug here and there. And to be honest, it'll be fine without it. It just adds a nice. Helps to add depth. Leaving one thing out won't give you a shit gravy. It's more about just building levels of flavour. And the more attention and the more good stuff you put into it, the better end product you're going to get. So my wine is getting there. We're going to reduce the wine by about half. So we're going to make a little flour slurry to thicken our sauce. I don't want it too thick, so I'm just going to go in with 1 tablespoon of flour, 2 tablespoons of our stock, and I'm just going to mix that into a paste. Yeah, you can use any liquid really, but just the stock is just what's going to go into my sauce. Doing this is going to ensure you don't get any lumps in your sauce. And next up, I'm going to add my bones back in, along with all the herbs. I'm just going to flatten that out nicely. Next up, I'm going to go in my stock. So this is just a very light chicken stock. That's about 1 litre. And then my slurry is going to go in as well. And there we have it. Now it's going to give that a final mix and leave that to simmer away nicely. For the longer the better really, but we'll probably give this about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And it should thicken and bubble away nicely. So here's my gravy, been simmering away now for about 90 minutes. As you can see, it's slightly thickened up. Now we're just going to take this sauce and we're going to pass it through a fine chinois or a sieve. So just going to push the contents down slightly, just to try and extract those last few juices. Yippee! So now we've got our gravy passed. We're going to finish the sauce with a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of mustard. So we're going to take a little bit of Dijon mustard. We're going to add a little bit of the sauce to the mustard, just to temper it. Mix it into a paste so that you don't get any lumps of mustard when we pour it into the main sauce. Tiny bit of vinegar brings the whole thing to life. And then I'm going to add in my sauce. Then I add my sauce over my mustard like that, bring it to a boil. Everyone always forgets to season the sauces. Now it's not always essential, but you want to be thinking about it as a flavour profile. But you wouldn't cook a piece of steak and not season it and eat it. Whereas the sauce is a very similar thing. You wouldn't cook a chicken wing and eat it without any seasoning. So why would you eat sauce without seasoning? Give it a taste and you can add whatever you need. You might want to add, obviously this is a lighter stock. You know, you can have quite thick brown sauces where you could add like a dark beef stock, or you could, you know, you might add more bones to your sauce. You might add beef trimmings, you might add beef bones, veal bones to your stock, etc. But this is all just a chicken-based gravy. Okay, so gravy's now ready to serve, and there we have it, our Wednesday Christmas gravy. So there you go, this is sort of like a medium thickness gravy, probably the thickness I would have it. Again, you could make this base, have it in the fridge. When you roast off your turkey, you could then add your turkey juices to it on Christmas Day, or your beef juices, or whatever juices you're using. It's a tool to show you how you can possibly do it, and then you can obviously change it with all your own different seasonings and flavours. Bon appetit!
So we're going to teach you today how to do really good Yorkshire puddings. It's pretty simple. When I first learned to do this recipe, I always just got told equal parts, and I don't know why, but they were never that good, and I always thought there must be a better way. So over the course of 3 years of doing Sunday roast at Fallow, we have a really good recipe and a really good tackers, which I think is actually our own because we've tweaked it a little bit. So a good Yorkshire pudding batter is you need to let it rest for a day, and as we've discovered over time, never store it in a metal container. So that's 8 eggs. This is probably going to make about 20 to 24 Yorkshire puddings. So you can scale that up or you can scale it down. And then next, add in your flour and just lightly pulse with the hand blender. Once it's like a sort of shaggy mess, I'm going to add in our milk in about 3 stages. And look, you can see there's these little lumps. Don't worry about it. Like when you make pancake batters, the best pancake batter has a few lumps and bumps in it. There you go, boom. So this is 500 grams of eggs, 350 grams of flour, and 525 grams of milk.
So not far off. The only difference being it's not got as much flour in. And what we found over time is that if you put less flour in the mix and it's a little bit wetter, you get a really beautiful rise. Rests overnight. And then my salt, which I've got weighed out, doesn't go in until the next day. That's also really, really important as well. What salt does is it coats the protein cells around eggs. And then once it does that, it inhibits the eggs from forming a proper batter, which will ultimately rise in the oven. So these are our Yorkshire pudding moulds. They're actually called muffin moulds, but large muffin moulds. It's these large, wide ones, and they kind of flute out, and they look like these big, beautiful, pillowy clouds. Place our mould into the oven. Now, you always see the classic Jamie Oliver thing, not slagging him off, I actually quite like him, is to put loads of oil in and then drop it down into the next one. I've actually found that the exact opposite is true. So what I always do is to use a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of oil, but I do think it matters the way that the batter goes into the jug. Okay, so our molds are nice and hot. Small amount of oil, just that. So you know your molds are hot enough if it's smoking. So I've just put it back inside the oven. Basically, the temperature of the oil hitting there will have cooled it down slightly. And then I'm just gonna give this a quick stir. Always taste it before you actually, if it tastes salty now, it'll be well seasoned when you eat it. So make sure that this doesn't taste bland, otherwise your Yorkie will be bland. Really important with Yorkies, don't put too much mix in. Temptation is, oh yeah, I want a big fat Yorkie, so I'll put loads of mix in there. Actually, all that happens is they collapse in on themselves, too much weight, and it basically just makes them sort of doughy and not very nice. And then also, you can see, because there's only a little bit of oil in there, when the batter hits, it doesn't balloon out and create loads of crazy little nodules at the top. 225 degrees, which is 437 Fahrenheit. Zero humidity on this oven, but in your conventional oven it won't matter, and a good fan on there, so it's got lots of airflow around. And you'll basically know if your Yorkshire puddings are good in the first minute of putting them in, because they should balloon up all around the edges straight away. These ones are looking quite good. Okay, so Yorkies have been in now for approximately 25 minutes, and there we have it. Lovely, crispy Yorkies, almost a little bit of cakiness at the bottom, so not too dry. Nice, beautiful teardrop shape. That's it, Yorkshire pudding, simple as.
We're going to do some triple cooked crispy parsnips. This takes a little bit more faff, but I do think the end result is much worth it. We can now cut our parsnips. The shape is completely up to you. So we're going for about sort of 3 inches. Cut them like so, and then we're going to remove a little bit of the core as well. On the thinner bit of the parsnip, like I did here, you can't really remove the core because you end up hacking the parsnips a bit. But you just want to take out as much of the woody core as you can. You can actually save this and just chuck this into your gravy. You don't want them, you don't want to have some really big ones and some really small ones, because you'll get a very inconsistent product. As long as the thickness is okay, then the shape, if they're a little bit longer, it won't matter. A little bit of salt in the water. Bring them up to a simmer. I don't have a lid, so I'm just going to use this pan. And while that's cooking, we're going to get cracking on our carrots. So these carrots are going to peel because they're just a little bit bigger and the skin's doesn't look that tender. But if the skin looks good and it looks like it will roast up nice, you can leave it on. We're going to honey glaze our parsnips and carrots, but we're going to cook them separately. But these carrots, I'm just going to roast in the oven. Parsnips, I'm going to triple cook, and then we'll mix them together and honey glaze them at the end. These bits of carrot trim here I'm going to save as well to go into my gravy. So carrots I've got here on my tray. I'm going to season these up nicely with a little bit of salt and a bit of oil, and I'll pop those into the oven. So yeah, we'll start off at 190 and then see how they go. Again, the carrots can be done a bit ahead of time. If it was up to me, when I do my Christmas dinner, I would always get everything to the point where it's sort of half done. We call it mise en place. And then it's just a case of you're just doing a bit of oven management, just balancing things. So the carrots and the parsnips are something that you can do first thing in the morning. Get them done, let them sit while you then do the potatoes. So once your potatoes are perfect, you just go in for a final 10, 15 minute blast with your veg just to freshen it up again. Parsnips are cooking. We want them to be fully soft, enough so that if we ruffle them, they're gonna break up slightly. So probably need a few more minutes. Right, so my parsnips are now looking beautiful. Really soft. I put my finger through it. See all these little holes here on the top? All these little holes on the top here. So my oil is going to go into there and expand and go make the parsnips go super, super crispy. So we're going to take our parsnips out, strain them. You want to let them steam dry before you try and ruffle them. If I try and ruffle them now, you end up with a slodgy, slushy mess. Once they steam dry, then all of the air escapes and then you get like a much, all the holes will become more pronounced. I'm going to put a little bit of salt on them now as well. And again, this will in turn just help dry them out a little bit. So just give that a little mix. Okay, I'm just going to give those a little turn. Those have been in for about 10-15 minutes. So those are actually not too far off. We'll give them about another 10 minutes. Place my parsnips into the bowl. And in here I've got some rice flour. I'm just going to sprinkle the rice flour over the parsnip. You don't need a massive amount. You're basically just doing it like a roast potato. So I'm going to be covered in the flour. You see how the edges are ruffled up? I'm just going to give them a little squeeze as well like that, just to make sure the oil can get inside. And these are going to fry until they just get a light colour on the outside. The oil is about 150. I'm just going to lower all those parsnips in, making sure that they're not touching. So they're probably going to take about 5 to 6 minutes. Obviously, this is obviously a bit more an advanced technique for parsnips, but you can really do these exactly the same way. If you just blanch them like I did before in the water, let them steam dry, and then you can just place them into onto a tray and roast them in oil, just like we did with the carrots. Same technique, and the product will still be absolutely delicious. This is just a way to elevate your parsnips if you've got the time and if you want to put the extra effort in. Okay, so first fries coming out, lifting them up. I'm just going to place them onto my wire rack, like so. And I'm just going to spread them out nicely to cool down. This is the stage you can take them up to the day before. I'm going to let those cool, and then when we're ready to serve, we'll push them back up. Okay, my carrots come out the oven, sexy. They're ready to glaze up. Now we're just waiting to fry the parsnips. So we're going to drop our parsnips in. This is my oil is 193. In they go. Yeah, so be really careful when you're frying at home. You want to make sure you've got a high-sided pan. Make sure you don't overfill the oil. And make sure you lay the things in gently and ideally away from you. Okay, so my parsnips are nicely coloured. We're now going to remove these, drain them off onto our paper. And then into our pan, we've got our honey going in. We're going to add a little touch of vinegar. Tiny touch of sriracha. This is optional, but we're just going for that hot honey sort of vibe. It also adds a nice little colour, I think. To thicken it slightly. So then heat off. Carrots are going to go in. Give them a little toss, like so. Then I'm going to go in with my crispy parsnips. Turn it all around in the honey glaze before layering into our bowl.